Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Haller and I'm here with Petri Syvänne and Ilkka Ruotsila of Accenture. And we're at UKTI and Finextra's Stockholm event at the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
What will be the main impact of PSD2 and what's the time frame of it?
So the main impact of PSD2 will be something that is called access to an account, and it means that there will be these new companies called third-party providers, and they will allow you to have an access to your account, not directly via your bank, but via a third-party provider. And that is the game changer that will be in the market. So when this will be happening, PSD2 will come into force in November, late November in 2017. And now we are waiting during this year for the European Banking Authority to give out the technical details that how actually is this connection between the third-party provider and the bank, how is that going to happen in practice?
What do the banks need to do?
Well, I mean, obviously in this kind of market and this kind of opportunity, there will be payment service providers, there will be third-party providers in the market preparing for the PSD2 and designing their strategy, what to do when the PSD2 comes into force. So what the banks need to do, that they need to decide their strategy and what is their take on the post-PSD2 market, and you know, the development cycle for the banking products is rather long. So what the banks need to do now is that they need to act now, because we have the PSPs and the payment service providers and third-party providers in the market already making their stake in the market, fulfilling their strategy, doing their development, and you know the development cycle of the banking products is rather long. So what the banks need to do is to decide and to act, and in order to be ready when the PSD2 comes into force.
Ilkka, how can banks use APIs in relation to PSD2?
To start with, they need to comply, obviously. That means that they need to create a very simple API that provides both access to the third parties as well as enables initiation of the payments on behalf of the bank's customers or the third parties. If they do this, it's fine. From a business perspective, however, in my mind, this will only mean that they will need to look from the side when the third-party providers will eventually expand their services into other areas in banking, such as consumer finance or corporate banking in the small and medium-sized segment. Broadly, however, I do see three strategies how they can really monetize the PSD2 threat and turn it into an opportunity. And first of them is selling data. Basically, this means that they will take the raw data from the bank and through an API, a very simple API, can sell it to interested third parties like corporate customers. The third strategy is to not only to sell data, but actually sell insights, which means that they will also, in addition to the API, they would need to also build internal analytical capability to provide the insight that a corporate customer is requesting on any of the segments of the banking customers. The third option, and perhaps the most profitable option, but also the most resource demanding option, is something I call the everyday bank. This means that the banks would not only create one single API, but actually several APIs and an ecosystem of APIs, which would then connect the consumers to the merchants and any service providers in the which are important in their daily life. So this would mean basically that the banks will provide access, they will provide advice, as well as monetary and time savings value for the consumer when they are purchasing and consuming everyday needs such as travel services or health services.
No matter what strategy banks choose, it seems like it's not a walk in the park. So what are the first steps that banks need to take?
First of all, obviously all these strategies I described are extremely delicate in terms of the data privacy. Banks need to put their data privacy policy together and decide across all the functions within a big bank, how do we handle the data, what can we do about it, how is the regulation affecting us. Only after that, the second step would be to define a vision for the API business. What is really the competitive advantage of our bank? How do we differentiate in the market? What is our approach in bringing all these data and insight and information to the market? Do we create an ecosystem, for example, or do we only do the selling data strategy, for example? And thirdly, I think most importantly, they need to create a solid governance model within the bank. Typically, the interested parties in a bank are coming from different functions. Corporate banking, retail banking, in finance, capital markets, and so forth. So how do these different functions play together, coming out from the functional silos and create a solid governance model and decision-making model together with the partnership strategy with the providers that are helping them to create these APIs?
Ilkka, Petri, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.